Shri Gauranga Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura BhaktiVinode Jayo Radhe Jayo Krishna Jayo Vrindavan Shri Govinda Gopinath Madana Mohan. Reading from the Jaiva Dharma, final chapter, and this is our final reading. It is part 3 of chapter 40, Sampatti, or the final conclusion, or the highest perfection. It began with the information that there are 5 stages of advancement, which begins with Shravanam, Varanam, Smaranam. That is, first there is hearing, Shravan, clearing out the unwanted doubts within the heart. When the doubts are cleared from the heart, one is ready to begin the process of devotional service, which means that now, under the guidance of the spiritual master, one engages in the processes of bhakti. Gradually, by hearing, one begins to remember. It becomes fixed within one's consciousness. That is called smaranam. By regularly practicing devotional service, hearing, chanting, serving, and so forth, smaranam, or the remembrance of the Lord, becomes fixed within the heart and the mind. Those are the first 3 stages. Then, what we will cover today is the subject matter of bhav, awakening of spiritual emotion within the heart, and ultimately concluding with prem, the final perfection, or true love for Krishna. If a person attains bhav, being situated perfectly, but tries to describe it, it will become contaminated by words. For words cannot carry the true meaning of the nature of Krishna and the divine leelas of Vrindavan. Therefore, his description will not be pure and complete. In other words, bhav can be only felt within the heart. Transmission of words or descriptions are limited. We can give a little idea, and therefore it was described to be like a drop on the great ocean of love of Krishna. That being the case, standing on the shore of that ocean, one can only reveal a drop of that ras because of the limitations of this physical body and the words we express. Vijay Kumar asks his Gurudev, "O Prabhu, how is it possible that I can attain spiritual ras?" The Goswami says, Madhurya ras is beyond depth and breadth. It is not to be contained in any way. It goes beyond all depth and breadth. Therefore, it is difficult to comprehend. Everything we know has its limitations. Everything has its boundary point. But true ras is beyond all boundaries. But Krishna has 2 unlimited qualities. Those are our hope, the mercy of Krishna. Krishna is endowed with all Shaktis and has his own desires. In other words, everything ultimately is dependent upon the desire of Krishna. Everything. Even our own spiritual advancement, to some extent, is all dependent upon Krishna's mercy upon us. For if we if we tried to endeavor on our own without the mercy of Krishna, which comes through the mercy of Guru, then we'd be going nowhere. Like pedaling a bike that is on a rack. It goes nowhere, just the wheels are spinning. So Krishna is endowed with all Shaktis, and he has his own desires. He can easily bring into this limited material world what is beyond depth and breadth, beyond comprehension. In other words, Krishna has the power to make himself known, even within this limited world. Though the material world is considered most insignificant, he desires to bring the most attractive bhav into this world. That is Krishna's desire. He wants to make himself known. And so he descends within this world. He manifests his own Dham within this world. This is all done by the will of Krishna. And those things are then recorded and remembered through the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures. So even though the material world is insignificant, he desires to bring those most attractive bhavs into this world. Thus the eternal spiritual pastimes filled with Madhurya Ras have appeared within this material world by his mercy. By his mercy we have some connection with that. Otherwise we'd be lost souls. We have no information of what is beyond this world. All we would know is birth, death, old age, disease. The belly needs to be fed. We have to fight for our rights. So many different things like this. That's all we would know. But Krishna makes himself known and thus creates within our heart an aspiration to attain that. Thus the eternal spiritual pastimes filled with Madhura Ras have appeared in the material world by his mercy. He has manifested his own world within our material world and has made himself known. The spiritual abode in the area of Mathura Mandala, has come into this material realm. One cannot ask how it has come. How does it remain? Since limited intelligence is there amongst the humans, and even the devatas cannot understand the actions of the Achintya Shakti, the all inconceivable mercy of the Lord. The pastimes of Braj are manifested within the highest pastimes beyond this material world. The pastimes of Braj are the manifested condition of the highest pastimes beyond the material world. We have received them, thus we have nothing to lament. By God's grace, Krishna's grace. These things have come to us by his mercy alone. We have access to this absolute spiritual reality beyond all mental comprehension, beyond the limitation of thought and words and so forth. Vijay Kumar says, if the Prakat pastimes are one with the Aprakat pastimes, still what are the stages of advancement? So Krishna makes some of his pastimes known. Not everything is known. There's more to be revealed once one attains to that stage. But he manifests some pastimes within this world. That is called the Prakat Lila. So, Goswami says, there is no doubt that the Prakat and the Aprakat, they're one and the same. What is manifested here also exists within the spiritual world in its perfect form. In the first state of Smaranam, the pastimes are realized in a Tatashta way by the bound Jiva. Tatashta means an intermediate stage, that is a borderline stage. You can hear about Krishna, and of course, the heart may be somewhat charmed by it, but they're still just stories to the living being. They may be sweet. They may be even doubted that how this can happen. How can Krishna lift a hill? How can Mother Jashoda try to bind Krishna with a rope and it's always 2 inches too short? One may wonder about these things because the mind kicks in. How is that possible? But if one listens with faith, these things become revealed more and more. So in the beginning, it is like a tatastha state. You're in the middle. They're not exactly material, but you haven't entered into the spiritual either. So the pastimes are realized in a tatastha way. And as the perception matures gradually, it becomes purified. As the heart becomes purified. These things have purifying effects. Hearing about Krishna has a purifying effect. In the beginning, they may appear to be just stories. But as the heart matures and becomes purified, one actually longs to enter into those pastimes, to see those pastimes, to be a part of those pastimes. As the perception matures gradually, this becomes purified. At that stage, bhavapana, the perception is pure. When the heart opens up, bhav awakens. O Vijay, I can say this to you, since you are qualified. If one performs a lot of sadhana at the stage of smarna, and if one's suitable effort for bhav at this time, the smarna stage will become the bhavanapan stage, apana stage, bhava apana stage. That is, one has to apply oneself to one's sadhana and regularly hear and chant and remember these pastimes, and gradually bhav will manifest. When the material conditions perceived at the stage of smarna has been completely destroyed, then apana stage appears. If one nicely practices pure bhakti sadhana during smarna stage, pure bhakti will appear within the heart by his mercy. Bhakti alone attracts Krishna. This is an absolute truth. That it is bhakti which attracts Krishna. So our sincere efforts attracts Krishna. And thus, by his grace, the maturity of that revelation takes place. By the mercy of Krishna, all contamination of the mind present during the smarna stage is gradually destroyed. As the Bhagavatam states, to the degree that the Atma becomes purified by hearing and chanting my glories, a person is able to perceive my real form and qualities and experience their sweetness. Just as the eye, when smeared with special ointment, is able to see finer objects. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, 14th chapter, 26th verse. As one becomes purified in heart, one becomes able to perceive the reality of Krishna and his Leelas. As the Brahma Samhita states, Premanjana Chritu Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadoiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yasham Sundaram Achincha Guna Sarupam Govindam Adiprusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship that Supreme Lord Govinda, of beautiful dark complexion, filled with inconceivable qualities whom the devotee constantly see in their mind during samadhi permeated with prema. The devotee achieves a state of samadhi, a state of perceiving the Lord and his Leelas, which are permeated with prema or pure love, when that heart is purified. At bhavapana stage, the Shakti for spiritual vision appears, and the devotee can see his Sakhi and the group leader. He will see his own spiritual form, his own spiritual nature will be revealed. He will see his own group leader. He will know everything about that transcendental relationship that he has personally with Krishna. Though he can see Krishna, master of Gokul, it is not a constant realization until Sampatti state manifests. with the destruction of his gross and subtle bodies. But he will be in and out of this stage at this point, initially. At the stage of bhavapana, the pure jiva rules over the material gross and subtle bodies. But when Krishna's mercy is full, the secondary result is that the jiva's relationship with the material world is completely severed. We may consider that this is when the perfected soul achieves a state of Krishna and leaves this material world, leaves this body behind. Sometimes, in some circumstances, he may still live within the body but has no connection with the world. That is a rare state. Generally, he will leave this world and attain to that state of Krishna, or go to Golok Dham. The stage of Bhavapana, therefore, is called Sarup Siddhi, and the stage of Sampatti is called Vastu Siddhi. Vijay Kumar says, on attaining the Vastu Siddhi, how does one see Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, and Dham? When one attains that realization, how does he see these things? Goswami humbly says, I cannot give the answer. When I attain to that Vastu Siddhi state, then I will be able to see and describe it. I can't describe what is beyond my own realization. Therefore, I cannot describe this to you. You're asking something which is beyond me. I still have in other words, I still have connection with this world, and I cannot give complete description of that. Or in other words, probably you would never receive it because he'd be beyond this world. So he says, in reality, I cannot give the answer. But when you attain that Sampatti stage, you will understand it. So he's saying, I cannot tell you. You will only know when you attain it. My words will not tell you anything. In fact, I'm waiting to attain that too. But you will attain it by spiritual perfection. And when you do attain it, you will understand it. It is something you yourself will have to understand. It will not be necessary to explain it, since you will have no question when you see it directly. If you have direct perception, you don't have to ask about it. When that stage of perfection comes to you, there will be no more questions. Also, there will be no result if the devotee explains it to others, what he sees at the stage of Bhavapana or Sarup Siddhi. Though he reveals it, the hearer will not be able to understand it. And then on the other end, the hearer cannot understand. He's not on that level. So all he can do is imagine something. So he's saying here, there's no reason to try to explain it to others, because it is beyond material reasoning. It has to be experienced. This state of Krishna consciousness is the highest experience. It is not to be told or explained. You're trying to capture everything within the mind. No, now practice and experience it. Attain to it yourself. Though he reveals it, the hearer will not be able to understand. Rupa Goswami has described the quality of the person having Sarup Siddhi, that he lives in the consciousness of being a maidservant to Radha and Krishna. That is his consciousness. And if some apparent fault is seen in a person who has developed real bhav, one should not be hostile to him, because he has accomplished the goal in all respects. One has to be careful then, Vaishnava Aparad. One may not understand the behavior of an advanced Vaishnava. That is not our position to try to judge, nor should we make criticism of. Therefore, the Vaishnava policy is one of humility. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first instruction, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. that one has to become humbler than the blade of grass, because that is the first quality of making advancement. If you become critical to those who are guiding or giving spiritual instruction, then your spiritual life is destroyed. This ever-fresh prema arises in the heart of a person who is very fortunate. That person's behavior is very difficult to comprehend, even for those knowledgeable of scriptures, states Rupa Goswami. You cannot understand the position of a person who actually has prema within his heart. Therefore, best position for the devotee, neophyte devotee, is to think, he is my superior, he is my Prabhu, and never make judgment or try to criticize such a person. I am the das anudas. I am the servant of the servants of the pure devotees of the Lord. Who am I to make some judgment? I am simply servant of the servants. So Vijay says, if that is so, why do Brahma Samhita and other scriptures even make the attempt to describe Golok? Goswami says, great devotees at the stage of Swarup Siddhi and the Devatas like Brahma, on seeing the Lord by his mercy, sometimes describe the place according to what they see. But it is abbreviated in their words. It cannot be expressed fully, therefore it's an abbreviated version. It becomes revealed to a person of lesser qualification in an unclear manner. There's some description, but it's not quite clear, because they're not qualified to understand, nor can words carry the true description of that transcendental abode and the transcendental mood of devotion that the devotees feel there. By the mercy of Krishna, the devotee takes support of the Prakat pastimes that have manifested and performs bhajan. In other words, hear about Krishna, chant about Krishna. Render service to Krishna, in accordance with the instructions of one's spiritual master. If you hear regularly, chant regularly, worship regularly, render service regularly, then ultimately perfection will be had. By that he will attain all perfection, and in a short time Golok will appear even within Gokul, the material world, to the fixed worshipper. For one who is advanced, he will see the spiritual world even in the Vrindavan of this material world. In the short time that Golok, referring to the spiritual realm, appears within this material world, Gokul, to the fixed worshipper. Whatever is in Gokul is in Golok, since they are non-different. All the actions which appear material to the person with materialistic eyes do not manifest to the person having Swarup Siddhi. Being satisfied with what one sees, according to qualification, one should perform bhajan. That is Krishna's order. If one obeys the order, Krishna will be merciful and reveal his pure pastimes. Engage in devotional service in accordance to the level you are on, always aspiring for the highest perfection. Then Krishna will reveal, in due course of time, more and more about the nature of his transcendental world, the nature of his devotees, the nature of that love that is expressed between Krishna and his devotees. Vijay Kumar became free of all doubts, hearing about these topics. Combining his bhavs with the pastimes of Krishna nicely, peacefully staying in a bhajan kutir on the shore of the ocean, he began to taste prema at all times. Now that spiritual emotion has awakened within his heart, he is chanting in his own bhajan kutir, free of all disturbances, and awakening his prema. At this time, Brajanath's mother died died, and Brajanath and his grandmother returned to their home. Who died of cholera, and Brajanath and his grandmother returned to their home. So back to the material scenario, Brajanath's mother dies of, and Brajanath and his grandmother then decide to return home. Vijay Kumar then remains. Remember, Vijay Kumar came with Brajanath. Sakya Prem appeared in Brajanath's heart because Brajanath had a feeling of service to Krishna in the mood of the cowherd boys, and this gradually matured within his own heart. And by the strength of his bhajan, he would spend his time with many pure Vaishnavas on the bank of the Ganga in Navadvip Dham. So he returned home to Navadvip, and with his grandmother, and engaged in his sadhana, associated with devotees. Gradually his own love for Krishna in Sakya-ras manifested. Vijay, though, took a different path. He gave up his householder dress, putting on a kopina and an outer cloth, took to the life of a Babaji. He begged Mahaprasadam to maintain his body. During the 8 portions of the day, he would remember the Lord. He would sleep when Radha and Krishna slept, and after they ate, he would accept prasad. During waking hours, he would serve them appropriately within his mind and heart. At all times, he had chanting beads in his hands. Sometimes he danced, sometimes he wept. And on seeing the waves of the ocean, he would smile and laugh. Who except himself could understand his behavior arising from bhajan? His external name was Nimai Das Babaji. He would not speak or hear worldly topics. He was most courteous, of spotless character, and firmly fixed in his bhajan. If someone brought Mahaprasad or brought an extra kopina or outer cloth, he would accept it if needed, but other than that, he would not accept anything. When he chanted on his beads, tears came to his eyes, his voice would choke, his hairs would stand on end. In a few days, his bhajan was perfected. Krishna mercifully gave him qualification for the apricot pastimes. Like Brahma Haridas, his body was put to rest in the sands of the ocean's shore. And this is all in Jagannath Puri. There the ocean is. So his body was placed there. Guru Krishna Vaishnava Kripa Baladhari BhaktiVinode Dina Bahu Jatnakari. By the strength of Guru Krishna and the Vaishnavas, this meek BhaktiVinode has composed the Jaiva Dharma in the Bengali language. It was completed on the full moon in the month of Magh. In the 410th year of the Chaitanya era, that is 410 years after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, corresponding to 1896, at Sarabi Kund in Godram, on the bank of the Ganga, at the home of BhaktiVinode Thakura. That home still stands, and we have been there, and one can go there for darshan of BhaktiVinode Thakura's residence and feel his presence. Shri Kali Pavana Gora Pade Yanra Ash E Granta Padhuntine Karyasha Vishvas. Those who wish to take shelter of the lotus feet of Shri Gauranga, the deliverer of Kali Yuga, should read this book with faith. Gauranga Janhara na Janmile Shraddalesh E Granta Padite Tanre Shapate Vivesh. However, those who have not an iota of faith in Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, I vow that they should never read this book. This book is for those who have faith in Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the deliverer of those within the Kali Yuga. Krishna cannot be attained by dry empirical philosophers aspiring for liberation. However, the pastimes of Braj will manifest in pure form to those who are faithful to the message of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Thus ends the book known as Jaiva Dharma, Tales of the Spiritual Seeker. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.